Right, okay, fantastic. So in this course strand, subsection 3 was asking you guys to look at professional skills, attitudes, and expertise. So as Di said at the beginning, you may or may not have had time to really dive into the tasks, the activities, and the pre-reading on the PLP. Definitely do go back if you haven't had a chance to do that already, and get involved in that reading and those tasks, because they're all about setting you up for the reflections you need to engage with for your assignment. So I'm just going to give a quick reminder. So for those who have done it, it's a refresher. For those who haven't had a chance to engage with the PLP tasks yet, this is just to kind of set the scene so you understand what you'll be looking at through this course strand. So professional skills, attitudes, and expertise. So in the PLP, the first activity in this subsection was activity 9, and you were presented with the functions of the ALN core from the ALN code, and asked to reflect on the skills, attitudes, and expertise that an ALN core needs to have. And I'm sure those of you who are in the roles of the additional learning needs coordinator, and you know, all of us who have worked alongside additional learning needs coordinators, we can think about the sorts of skills that we see as ideal in facilitating that role and the inclusion agenda widely within the setting. In activity 10, then, you were asked to reflect on your own skills, attitudes, and expertise, and how they might align with the professional standards for teaching and leadership for primary and secondary education, or for professional standards for further education teachers and work-based learning practitioners in Wales, depending on your role. You were asked to score yourself between 1 and 10 to enable you to identify some areas where you wanted to set yourself some targets, areas that you feel you need to develop further, relevant to additional learning needs and the role of the additional learning needs coordinator. Activities 12 and 13 then were asking you to engage, to identify the barriers, the challenges and the enablers, the facilitators, to developing the skills, attitudes, and expertise necessary. So what's really supporting you or practitioners in your setting to develop these skills, attitudes, and expertise, but what's kind of holding things back? I mean, the obvious springs to mind straight away, doesn't it, in terms of time and money, but you know, thinking more deeply about that, what might be causing an issue in developing those skills, attitudes, and expertise. So as Di mentioned earlier, you know, and as is a thread through all of the ALN modules, is that the acknowledgement that inclusion is everybody's business. You know, we have come to a place where inclusion of learners with ALN is no longer seen as the sole kind of realm of the, as was Senko, and you know, come in and take these children out of my classroom and work with them elsewhere. And you know, that's not where we're at anymore. We acknowledge, we recognise that everybody has to be on board in terms of facilitating inclusion. And that phrase that we hear all the time, all practitioners are ALN practitioners. But the functions of the additional learning needs coordinator are really wide now. They're really far-reaching. The roles and responsibilities of practitioners in the classroom, of all practitioners, are also really broad, really wide-reaching. So the Professional Standards for Teaching and Leadership 2017 identify those standards that we should be, all of us as teachers, working to in terms of around the themes of pedagogy, leadership, professional learning, innovation, and collaboration. And as you hear those themes, you can probably see a lot of connection to the discussions we've been having around moving practice forward and developing more inclusive practice. You know, the facilitators of good, strong collaboration and innovation and professional learning, professional training, development, the importance of leadership, the importance of high quality teaching. So all of those things are represented within those professional standards. And those areas are relevant to everyone, all practitioners and the Elenco. And then the Elenco has that additional responsibility for ensuring those things from the perspective of inclusion. There's a quote there from Eston from one of their thematic reports, the 2024 report, where they said that of the schools they'd been around to identify inclusive practice and see how the ALN legislation was embedding around Wales. In the most inclusive schools, teaching, curriculum and assessment were designed and delivered to engage pupils in learning that was meaningful, relevant and accessible to all. And it's that bit, you know, about making sure that a curriculum is for everybody. That is really, really important, isn't it? And in that report, they kind of offered a kind of concept framework for inclusive education, because that's again something that comes across in all of these modules, that often the terms we use haven't got absolute definitive definitions that people are working to, and that's part of the being open to interpretation is part of the kind of challenge around inclusion. But in the Eston report, they offer this. So I put this in here because I thought this was really good food for thought, actually. A process through which all pupils access common opportunities in ways relevant to their needs and which ensures that they fully belong to the school community. Inclusion requires the active involvement of all concerned. It places the onus on schools to adapt their organisation and their ways of responding to both meet the needs and value the development of all children and young people in all areas of school life. It requires an inclusive curriculum and measures to improve teaching and other staff's awareness of inclusive learning and equality issues. So it's quite a nice catch-all, but it also shows us the complexity involved in inclusive education. So from that then, we're going to go into our activity 3 breakout room. And in this activity, so you were in the activities in the PLP, you were asked to reflect on the skills, attitudes and expertise of the Elenco. Given that we know that this is everybody's business, and given that quote from Esther, what we want you to do in the breakout rooms now is consider what are the professional skills, attitudes and expertise everybody, all practitioners across the setting need to support inclusion, and how evident are those within your current setting? Are there particular elements that are more challenging to embed, to foster, to develop than others? And again, as Di said earlier, please identify somebody in the group to capture the key thoughts of the discussion and add them up onto Padlet, and to be willing to feedback some of your kind of key thoughts. So we've got 10 minutes for this task. I'm just going to stop the recording first, get things in the right order, Anne.